our arms, what makes our arms good to stand on, that gives a sense of strength and support in our arms. It's one of the essential things in coming up to eventually be able to stand and have freedom for our arms, with our arms, to be able to manipulate things and explore the world. Is, first of all, we get into these positions where we crawl and clamber up a wall, and first of all, our arms get and hands become organized, and then the legs come into it. But how do we, what is a well-organized arm? We've seen, in the last couple of weeks, how the width of the hand is equivalent to the depth of our body, the depth of the head, neck, and torso, and how the bones of the wrists can make these delicate adjustments in order to adapt the position of our arms, so that we can rotate it to different positions and exert force through the arm, or indeed, manipulate our hands and fingers in a way that enables us to feel with sensitivity, but still have the strength of the connection through to the whole torso. And so we'll explore really the shape of the rib cage and the shape of the pelvis, as we were doing last week. But it's an interesting thing, learning is layered. The whole history of life on Earth, it's a sequence of organisms, adapting, connecting with others, and cooperating and developing these new skills, and it stays there, although we may not necessarily know it. For instance, hanging, which we did for millennia, and it's still there within us, the capacity. It's there as a layer of meaning in the experience of our arm and shoulder, and it's there in the structure. We still have the same structure so that we can hang, but of course we don't live in trees, so we're not doing it very much. It's only really gymnasts or people who spend a lot of time working on that who experience that, but it's nevertheless there. So to actually explore the structure of the limbs there, the way they rotate, the way they organize, is a really interesting thing to do. And so much of what we're doing, it uses the other side of the body. It's this playing, length and width off each other, as we were doing last week, or, the muscles in the front and the body, opposite sides of the body, how they can work together to create this stability. And the thing is, we have this double spiral arrangement where everything wraps around the body. And so many of our actions utilize this, opposite arm and leg. And the shape of the spine, the shape of the rib cage and the pelvis, they really facilitate that. In fact, let's look at some pictures. Where are we? Yes. Now, one of the things we're going to look at, is the muscular system. I've started here. And that's the way that the arms and the head connect into the pelvis from above. So this is just the superficial musculature. But, that's basically the connection from above into the torso. It includes the abdominal muscles, goes right down to around the wing of the pelvis here, across the inguinal ligament, and, right to the pubic bone and around, over the wing of the pelvis and right down to the sacrum, and right up over the head. And, over the full depth of the body. So it's like this sleeve that fits right around the body that we can twist and pull and manipulate in different ways. Whereas the legs, they're connecting from below. I have to, it takes too long to do this. That's better. right around the pelvis. And right up to the pubic bone, and also up to the inguinal ligament here. And from the feet, right down, right around, up to the top of the pelvis here. And everything in the legs, it's through length. And these are superficial muscles we're looking at here. And, it continues deep within the spine and up over the front of the spine as well, with the iliopsoas system, and then the diaphragm within that right up to the front as well. But nevertheless, it illustrates this point. And the thing that, one of the things I'd really like to consider today is, width of the hands and the depth of the body, and the width of the feet. Why can't I do that there? The width of the feet. And how that is expressed right through these planes of the body. So the width of the foot there is the same as the width of the knee. It's the same as the width from the edge of the femur bone here, the greater trochanter, into the hip socket here, or various places, along the width of the sitting bones here on the bottom of the pelvis. But to sense this plane from the sole of the foot, the top of the foot, right up over the front of the body, across here, right around over the front of the body up to the head. So the planes of the body as we roll. So, to include the legs in length, I still have to include the head. All the muscles of the face and the neck. Because the head is this expression of length, whereas the arms is more an expression of width. And of course, it's how everything plays, off each other that we're really looking at. And the muscular system, in a way, it hides. Oh, isn't that so great? It's funny, I've only had this program all this time. I've only just learnt that I had this menu over the side where I could, add or take away layers. The muscular system hides in some ways the curves that we have. The curved shape of the pelvis here, and the curved shape of the rib cage. And in order to roll slowly, to roll over the side and round to the front, it's this shape through here. And, around the pelvis, that's so significant and useful to pay attention to. And, across the back of the pelvis, it's fairly clear, the roundness. And the sacrum, goes, well, from above, right across the iliac crest here, in the sacrum out to there, but also, and right around to the hip as well, and down to the sitting bone. And, when we're thinking of the back of the body, the shape of the back, we can think from we'll go this side, the sitting bone round to here, sacrum round to the hip, and sacrum down to the sitting bone, and then down the back of the leg, right down to the heels here. So, this whole shape right down from here down onto the back of the leg, and in the front. It's slightly more complicated. This, you've got this almost like a figure eight that's through here, going out to the hips and across there. So in the front you have this, where it joins onto the arms from the pubis, the pubic bone here up to the iliac crest along this ligament. You've got all these muscles from the legs coming up onto there, and underneath that ligament as well, it's underneath here where the psoas goes from here, up over the front of the pelvis, and then or iliacus as well, around onto the inside of the the pelvic bone here, and then along the spine up to where the diaphragm is up here on either side. But so this connection along here, and then from the pubic bone down to here, to the sitting bone, and down to the, and there down into the leg. And in fact, if I put the skin on, whoops. That's what I need. Muscle. There we are. Skin. Oh. Anyway, from the shape of the legs is what I'm getting at here. So not, yeah. Round here. Right around the leg. From the front of the, from the down to the pubic bone, then all the way the sitting bone comes down here, and all that muscle extends out there, but it's this shape right around the inside of the leg here, and down into the feet is what we're sensing here, right through the front of the leg, and then to the front of the feet. So just being able to feel the width of the foot and the width of the hand, and to sense across the front these whole planes right across the front up to the head, and in the back the same thing, right across from the heels, the shape, the round shape through here, right across up to the sacrum and the back, and then across to the rib cage as well. I think that's good. Yes. No. No. There. So often, yeah, that's what I want to do, is the curves of the spine are really significant. It's a spring that we have here. And we have this curve through the neck here, and a curve through the lower back there. And then we have the curve of the sacrum coming down this way, and the curve of the rib cage coming here. And it's this free area here in the lower back, this capacity to rotate through here and through the neck, that really gives or adds so much functionality to our structure. And it's the muscular forces on either side of the body that can stabilize that. And those muscular forces, we can think of it through the torso, holding everything together. Well, they're the main stabilizers. But in terms of functional movement, in terms of standing on the hands or walking on the hands, or, so many actions, we need to think of it also in terms of the width of the feet. From here, that this foot is able to support the entire body. And that these arches through here, the three arches in the foot, the two longitudinal ones and then the transverse arch here, they're able to support the entire body. And this is the same as our depth. Well, within reason, but everyone is different. But when we stand on one leg, it's sensing the width of the foot. And in the width of this foot, we can press down on this toe or on this toe due to the transverse arches. It means we can stabilize ourselves. And all these joints here can then move to make that easier, to enable us to shift our weight, well, in this case, over this leg here. We bend in the lower back and in the neck, and everything's adjusted accordingly. But those changes in the pelvis, they also extend through into the feet, and if we're reaching or standing on the hands or reaching up with the hands through to the hands. So that's really what I'd like to consider today. the sense of cohesion through the whole body. And one way to achieve that, when we're rolling or doing something, is to just spread our attention along an entire plane. Because we're lying on the floor often when we're rolling, so it makes it easier to feel that. But you can also feel it internally just through the working of the muscle. And in particular, the width of the foot here, that's what I need. Let's come back to, yeah. The width of the foot across here, and then, this sense of the width across the front here as we're lying on the ground, or, from the pubic bone here around to the side, as we're moving so right, this whole front sector of the foot, if we just move the toes, or if we move the hands, same thing, to be able to consider right across the whole front, or right across the, from the front to back at the side, or, across the back here and across the back of the head. And so you consider the foot, the width of the foot up through the width of the leg, across the width of the back and the width of the hand. And it's, it's a lovely feeling and really quite useful. And often we think of ourselves in bits, because we're thinking of ourselves in relation to the bits of protective tension that we're employing. That's probably enough to, oops. For how we're embodying, or, how we're feeling on a particular day, how we sense the world. We often have these actions that are there that usually are in our modern world are a reflection of our anxieties. And so it has this effect of actually limiting our body awareness, makes us feel smaller than we actually are, or sometimes larger, but often it's a two-dimensional thing. We feel ourselves as a flat plane, particularly if we're stressed or there's too much on. So to actually spread our attention from our head to our feet and our hands, and to sense the width of the body and its shape, contradicts that limited sense of space that we have. And it's often, if we can be present to the actual experience of the planes of the body from head to foot, head to hand, that we can actually we have more options, and so we can actually shift out of things. So let's explore this. So here's Guillermo. So could we begin by coming onto our hands and knees? Then we use that as a test movement today. So, and you'll need some wall today. We'll need the wall at some stage to lean against, or to put our hands against. Let's see. More. Good. We're going. Oh, not quite. A little bit more. Lovely. So come onto your hands and knees and just get a sense of how it feels here. Feeling in your wrists. How much of your hands you're actually using to support your weight here, and the amount of tension that you have through your body to maintain this position. The balance of tension between your hands and your knees. You could lift yourself up onto your feet if you like, just to feel how that is. And even walk a little bit, or on your hands and feet. And we'll come back to this later. And then crawl a little bit, just to get a sense of how it is. And we'll try this again at the end. Yeah, and then come down onto your back. Lie down on your back. And sense your weight. Notice the magnetic force of gravity, drawing everything down toward the center of the earth. Head and our chest and pelvis. And each shoulder and arm. The hands. And the hips. You know, the muscle of the leg in the pelvis and in the hips and the legs themselves. Their sense of weight. The lower legs and the feet. Probably you're becoming aware of your breathing and the extent to which you can go with the flow of gravity. Is probably the extent to which you can be present. And receptive. And when we're resisting the flow of gravity down, we're tightening some parts, lifting some parts away from the floor. Notice it. It's quite possibly different on each side or with each limb. And maybe you'll feel it as the back of one knee feels higher from the floor, or there's more muscular tone there. You could move your fingers and toes here, just a tiny movement. So you can feel the full width of each hand and foot, and each arm and leg. And you could notice, if one side of your pelvis feels flatter on the floor than the other, or if it's rolled over closer to the center of the earth than the other one. Or one side of your rib cage. Because we favor one side. We write with one side usually. We have a dominant eye. The one that you'll lift a telescope or look through a telescope with. We often have or usually have a dominant ear as well. And that influences the organization of how we orient ourselves. Well, take your right hand now and place it underneath your lower back, palm down, and your left hand and place it underneath your neck. So you could feel the shape of the lower back, the curve in the bones of the lower back and the curve in the neck. And if it's uncomfortable to be in this position, just approximate wherever you can and rest frequently. It will probably become easier. But sense now from the soles of your feet right through to your head, and from the fingers, the palms of your hands through to your ribcage. And just make the tiniest movement with the fingers and toes, so that you could sense the width of the foot and the leg, and the width of the hand and the arm. And consider that right through your body. So from your feet, right along your legs to the pelvis, in the front of the pelvis, the pubic bone out to the hip, and from the back of the pelvis and the back of the leg and foot, from the sacrum out to the hip. And from the inside of the hand, the thumb and first fingers, up through the arm across the front of the body. And the little fingers around to the back. And as you're making these tiny movements with the fingers, roll your head and your legs side to side. Because we have the width of our body, and we also have the depth, and the length of your feet is equivalent to the depth of your head from front to back. Think of that right through your body. And the width of the outstretched fingers equivalent to the depth of your body too. And you may notice as you're rolling your legs and your head side to side, maybe it's easier to go in one direction. Well, allow that to be the case. Don't force anything. And then leave that. Take your hands out. Just rest there for a moment. And then once again place, this time, your left hand underneath your lower back and your right hand underneath your neck. Sensing the width of your hands, the width of your feet. Once again, move the toes and fingers so that you could sense how the whole of the arm and the leg is involved in that tiny movement of the fingers. And how you can feel that across the front of your pelvis to the hip and across the back of the pelvis to the hip. Legs connecting from below and the arms and hands connecting from above. And then roll your legs and your head side to side. And notice, how is it different with your arms in this organization? And don't force it, but you can continue moving the fingers and toes, if it's easy, just so that you can still have this sense of your legs and arms in 3 dimensions. So you can get that sense right across the front of the pelvis, from the pubic bone out to the hip, and the pubic bone down to the sitting bone and out to the hip, all the way down through the leg to the foot. And from the sacrum out to the hip, and the sacrum down to the sitting bone and out to the hip, and all the way down the back of the legs to the feet. And from the front and the back of the pelvis, right up through the torso to your head, and out through your ribcage, out to your arms and hands. And now stay here with your arms and legs. And this time, could you rotate your pelvis side to side? Roll your pelvis side to side. Just the pelvis. Notice how it moves in each direction. And how your legs are influenced by this. So you sense right across the back of the pelvis out to the hip, down to the sitting bone and down the backs of your legs to your feet. To the width of the feet, and you could be moving the fingers and toes a little bit to enable you to sense the full width of each arm and leg. And then across the front of your pelvis, pubic bone out to the bony wing of the pelvis, and then out to the hip, and also down from the pubic bone to the sitting bone and out to the hip, and then right through the front of the leg, the round shape of the front of the leg down to the feet. And from the back and front of the pelvis up to the head. And now leave your pelvis, roll your legs over to the right and your head, legs and head over to the right. And now in this position, rotate your pelvis. How is it different? With your arms and your head with your legs and your head over to the right, how is it different? Don't force it. But, consider through the full width and depth of each arm and leg. You could still keep moving the fingers and toes so that you could sense that and think, how is it different with your head and your legs over to the right? Well, leave your legs there, but roll your head to the left, and now try rolling the pelvis. That's different, isn't it? Sense the whole leg. And then come back to the middle and roll your head and your legs to the left. And now roll your pelvis and notice how it is in this side. With your left hand underneath your lower back how does this affect your ability to roll over to the right? Is there a different organization in your legs and your arms to do this? And then roll your head over to the right, keep your legs to the left, and continue rolling your pelvis. Sensing from the top, or the front and the back of the pelvis, all the way down to the feet, and all the way up to your head and out to your hands. And then leave that, let your arms out and rest for a moment. Now place your right hand underneath your lower back and your left hand underneath your neck. Notice how that feels. And then roll your pelvis side to side here. What's the difference? This might be easier, it might be more difficult. It depends on the particular twists you have. But sense your full length from your feet up to your head, and your full width out through the sides of the torso to the elbows and hands. You could move your fingers and toes to remind yourself of the connection of your legs and your arms into the front and back of your body. And now roll your legs over to the left and your head over to the left. Stay there. And now roll your pelvis side to side. Do you roll in the same direction? Is your pelvis rolling directly side to side? Or does it roll up slightly on one side? The more you can flow with the force of gravity down into the center of the earth with your legs, your head and shoulders, the easier it will be to feel. To sense the different organization through each leg and each arm. Well, leave your legs to the left, but have your head to the right. And now roll the pelvis side to side and notice the difference, how that changes the way you can roll your pelvis. Still thinking of the way everything connects into the pelvis, the legs from below and the head, chest and arms from above. Maybe you can even sense the way your ribcage is moving. As you're rolling your pelvis here. Well, roll your legs over to the right now, so your head and your legs are over to the right, and now continue rolling your pelvis side to side. You can move the fingers and toes so you can feel the full width of the foot and the hand, and you know how they connect right through to the rib cage for the arms and the pelvis for the legs, but the arms and the head and chest down into the top of the pelvis as well. And then keep your legs there, but roll your head to the left, and now continue rolling your pelvis side to side, moving the fingers and toes, minimizing the amount of effort. So you can still be going with the flow of gravity. Lovely. Leave that. Let your arms down by your side. Come back to the middle and rest. Sense your contact with the floor now. Well, could you place your left hand underneath the lower back, palm down, right hand underneath your neck, palm up. Notice if that feels a little easier now. And then roll your rib cage side to side. Roll your rib cage side to side. It might be that you feel the right side of the rib cage press into the floor, then you press the left side. Or it might be that you feel your breastbone, the sternum, rolling from side to side as if it's a big light that shines onto the ceiling or into the sky. And notice as you're doing that, with how the lower back and the neck are influenced by that. Your pelvis is lying there, your head is lying there, your rib cage is rolling side to side. What happens through the spine? And of course, you could also just, if that's tricky, you could swivel the rib cage within the suit of skin. You sort of slide it from side to side on the skin. Maybe you'll be feeling it sliding within the shoulder girdle too. And of course, if you're rotating the rib cage in this way, you can feel the back and the front of the rib cage moving. How does that affect each arm? You could move the fingers and toes as you're doing that to, get this sense of the muscular system all the way through, from your head to your feet, and, from your chest out to the hands. And how each arm connects into the front and the back of your rib cage as it's sliding. You know, it's different with the hand under the neck or the hand under the lower back. And, you know, maybe as you're rotating the rib cage this way, you can sense the way the arms and the rib cage connect into the top of the pelvis. And leave that. Now roll your legs and your head over to the right, and now rotate your rib cage. Just sensing that, you know, connection. Move your fingers and toes, tiny movement, if it's easy. You know, so you can sense the influence of this right through to your feet and right out to your hands and to the inside and outside of each hand and foot and each arm and leg. And maybe keep your legs to the right, but have your head to the left, and continue rolling the rib cage here, and just think, how is it different? Full width of each hand and wrist. You know, so you feel the movement of the thumb and the little finger as, you know, being equivalent distance. So you can sense right around your arms. And then keep your head there, move your legs over to the left now. So you have your head and your legs over to the left, and now rotate your rib cage. Sensing it right down to the top of the pelvis and out to each hand. Letting everything drop so you can flow with the force of gravity. You know, just make the movement smaller, tiny. So you have space to let everything go. And then keep your legs to the left, rotate your head to the right, and continue rolling your rib cage, sliding it within the suit of skin. And, you know, sensing the shape of the rib cage. You know, how it rolls. How it slides within the shoulder girdle. And the influence right down across the back of the pelvis as you're rotating the rib cage. You know, you can feel that sliding probably within the entire skeleton within the suit of skin. And then leave that, let your arms and legs be long. So you notice your capacity to flow with gravity now down into the center of the earth. And now place your left hand underneath your lower back and your right hand underneath your neck. The opposite hand to what we just did. And now roll your rib cage side to side. Is this easier or more challenging? Can you feel the way the rib cage is sliding over the shoulder blades? You could move the fingers and toes, ever so small a movement, really just so that you could feel the muscular system and the fascial system from your feet to your head, and from your head and pelvis out to your hands. And now roll your head and your legs over to the right. And here, rotate your rib cage. And the feeling through the front and back of your rib cage. Cross the shoulder blades out to the arm, the edge of the arm at the side, and how it's different with each arm, the one that's under your lower back and the one that's under your neck. And from there, from the shoulder blades or from the collarbones, I should say, out to the side of the arm there, right across the front of the body, right down to the front of the pelvis as you're rotating your rib cage. And then across the back, across the shoulder blades, from the spine to the shoulder blades and the edge of each arm, up to your head and down to your pelvis. And then leave your legs over to the right and move your head to the left and continue rotating the rib cage. Feeling how the whole skeleton is sliding within your suit of skin. And move your legs over to the left with your head and continue rotating your rib cage. Moving the fingers and toes. Sensing your arms right down to the front and back of the pelvis, top of the pelvis, and the legs right through to the front and back of the pelvis from below. And then leave your legs to the left, roll your head to the right, and continue rolling your rib cage. Lovely, and leave that. Take your arms out and just rest there. How much of you can fall into the center of the earth now? And now roll over onto your stomach. You may want to get a cushion or something to put under your forehead. And have yourself closer to the wall so that you could put your hands on the wall if needed. You could extend your palms forward and place them on the wall. And just lie there on your stomach with your head on your hands, forehead on your hands. And allow everything to flow with the force of gravity. From your feet to your head, your elbows and shoulders, everything able to fall. And just roll your forehead on your hands and roll your legs. A very small movement you can feel as you roll across the front of the feet, the width of each foot, and consider the width of each leg, the width of the knee, and the width of the leg where it joins the pelvis, as you're rolling across there. And as you're rolling your head, quite possibly there's a subtle movement across your ribcage as well. You can feel the shape of the front of your body from your forehead, over your ribcage, belly, your pelvis, and legs. And make that movement a little bit bigger. Roll yourself to the side and, in fact, draw one leg out to the side and then come back to the middle and then roll to the other side and draw that leg out. So you're rolling side to side. Extend, one arm will be extended up toward the wall and the other arm will drag down. So when you're lying on the right side, the right arm and leg will be long, the left arm and leg will be bent. And roll across the front of your body, sensing the shape of the front, the shape of the rib cage and the pelvis. And each leg and arm, shape of each shoulder. And move yourself a little closer to the wall so that you could have your right hand, the right palm on the wall. And roll yourself onto your, you see you're on the right side, your left leg is bent. And in fact, could you now place the left hand underneath your lower belly? Your left hand is underneath your lower belly. You're lying on your stomach now, actually. Yeah, so lie on your stomach now with your left hand under your lower belly and your right hand extended up to touch the wall. So the palm of the right hand is sitting on the wall, or wherever it can comfortably. And just sense the width of each hand and foot. And roll your head and your legs here. Just a very small movement to feel how each leg connects into the front of the pelvis. You can feel it rolling across the front of the pelvis. And the width of the hand. As your head turns, your rib cage rolls a little bit underneath the shoulder. How does that influence the way the arm lies there and the way the hand sits on the wall? And now leave that and just roll your pelvis side to side. Roll your pelvis side to side. So you allow your legs to be passive, so your feet are still staying there. But of course, as you're rolling your pelvis, that's pulling on all the muscle. So you can still feel from the width of the front of your pelvis, where the leg connects into the pelvis, all the way down to the knee. It's being moved. And all the way down to your feet. And you could make a very small movement with your fingers and toes to enable you to feel that all the way through. And your legs connecting into your pelvis from below, and your arms connecting into the pelvis from above. And then leave that, roll your head and your legs over to the right. Stay there, and now roll your pelvis side to side. How is that? You can move your fingers and toes. Don't force it, just sense, how does this movement here, when we're twisted in this way, what's the freedom of the pelvis, and how does it influence the way your limbs connect into the head, neck and torso? Then leave your legs to the right, but turn your head in the other direction, so the back of the head goes toward the left. And now roll the pelvis. What's the difference here? And the feeling through the rib cage. And now keep your legs over to the left with your head, back of the head to the left, and now roll the pelvis. What's the difference here? Softening everywhere. Lovely. And now turn your head in the other direction. So your legs are over to the left, but the back of your head is toward the right. And now roll your pelvis. Very nice. And then leave that. Take your arms out and just rest there on your stomach. Now let's reverse your hand. So place your left hand on the wall and your right hand or right arm underneath the lower belly there, so across the front of the pelvis. And just get a sense of how it feels here. Roll your head and your legs a little. The full width of each hand and foot. And then leave that, roll your pelvis side to side. And then have your legs and your head over to the left, the back of the head over to the left and the heels over to the left, and now roll your pelvis. You could move the fingers and toes just so that you feel the full width and depth of each arm and leg. And then move the back of the head toward the right side, so the heels are to the left and the back of the head is toward the right, and now move the pelvis. Fingers and toes. And then roll your legs over, the heels over to the right, so the back of the head is toward the right and the heels, and now roll your pelvis. Moving the fingers and toes. Your full length. And then move the back of the head over to the left. Continue rolling the pelvis. Notice how it is here. And then rest. Leave that. And place the right hand underneath the lower belly, the left hand on the wall. And now rotate your rib cage. Swivel your rib cage within the suit of skin. And notice as you're doing this, right across the front of the collarbone and out to the hand. And right across the shoulder blade, from the spine, across the shoulder blade to the edge of the arm and out to the hand. And from the front and back of the shoulder and rib cage up to your head and down to your pelvis. And then rotate your legs to the left, heels to the left, and the back of the head to the left. And now continue swiveling your rib cage within the suit of skin. Well, actually, it's the whole skeleton sliding within the suit of skin, but feel the full length and width and depth right through to the hands and feet. And keep your legs to the left, but move the back of the head toward the right. Continue swiveling. And then move the legs over to the left as well, the heels to the left, back of the head to the left. Continue moving the rib cage and see how it is here. And if it's more awkward, one of these positions, do less. Just see what you can do to soften. And then turn your head so the back of the head's toward the left and the heels are toward the right, and now swivel the rib cage here. And then leave that and rest. And then place your left hand, left forearm underneath the lower belly, top of the pelvis there, and the right hand on the wall, palm on the wall, or wherever you can get it comfortably. And rotate the rib cage here. Moving the fingers and toes so that you could sense the whole muscular system, the way it connects into the rib cage here, from the collarbone out to the side of the arm, and from the spine across the shoulder blade out to the side of the arm, and up to your head and down to your pelvis. And then roll your head and your legs to the right, back of the head to the right, heels to the right, rotating the rib cage here. And feeling the way your rib cage slides within the shoulder girdle. And then turn the back of the head to the left. Continue rolling the rib cage. And moving the legs to the left. So your back of your head and the back of the legs are to the left, and you're swiveling your rib cage. Lovely. And then turn your head around so that the legs are to the left and the back of the head is to the right. Rotate the rib cage. Lovely. Leave that. Roll onto your back and rest. And bring yourself closer to the wall so that you could reach behind you and you could place your hands on the wall above your head. Yeah. And place your hands on the wall and notice how they sit there. Do you have an equal contact across the heels of the hands? Is there just as much pressure on the outside of the heel as there is on the thumb side? Rotate your hands so you find the easiest position. Where your hand feels flatter. And if you're closer to the wall, it'll probably be easier if your arms are more bent. And then just sit here for a second and just sense gravity drawing you down to the center of the earth. And that your arms can sort of hang here. And roll your legs and your head. And notice as you're rolling your head and your arms are fixed in this way against the wall, the feeling of the rib cage sliding underneath the shoulder girdle. And how everything connects down into the pelvis. So from above, the arms and the head and the rib cage, and from below, the legs. And keep your legs over to the right and your head to the right. And now rotate your pelvis side to side. And notice what happens right through. Now you can move your fingers and toes a little bit just to reconnect yourself with the feeling of the whole muscular system, the full width and depth of each arm and leg. And you may notice as you're rolling your pelvis that there's also this twist on the wall. You're pressing differently with each hand. Well, turn your head to the left and continue to move your pelvis side to side. Your legs are to the right, your head is to the left. Notice how that's different here. And then move your legs to the left along with your head, and now roll the pelvis and feel how that is different. Just to push through the hands, you probably do something differently with your legs over to this side. And if you move your head over to the right, still having your legs over to the left, you feel it's different again. Yeah. Now leave that. Let your arms down by your side. So once again, place your hands on the wall. And you may notice maybe you have your fingers pointing toward each other slightly. Because it's a little bit different. The organization of the arms are in width. Try turning your hands in a little bit and then pressing through the hands into the wall and noticing how that force goes all the way down to your pelvis. And, consider the front and back of the pelvis out to each side. To stand on your hands, or if you walked on your hands, you'd be supporting the whole body weight. Front and back of the chest and front and back of the pelvis. Well, roll your rib cage side to side now. Swivel the rib cage. And notice that to swivel the rib cage, it's this movement through the entire skeleton that you can feel within the suit of skin. And roll your legs and your head over to the right and rotate the rib cage. It's different, isn't it? And now turn your head to the left and try that. And then move your legs to the left, rotating the rib cage. And then keep your legs there, move your head to the right and rotate the rib cage. Feel each position, it's slightly different. And then leave that, let your arms down by your side. That's a different set of arms, isn't it, and shoulders. Now, place your right hand on the wall behind you, the left arm out at shoulder height, and lengthen through the left leg and press on the right arm and roll yourself onto the left side. You lengthen through the arms and you lengthen through the legs. You lengthen through the legs and you widen through the arms. Sense how you can roll and the movement within the shoulder girdle. You could probably roll right over and lift your head up and look at your hand and come back down onto your back. You're lengthening through the legs, widening through your arms, lifting and looking at the head. And then swap hands and do the same thing to the other side. Lengthen through the legs, widen through the arms. And of course, it's a little bit different because we have our arms up above our head, so we're lengthening the arms as well as widening them. You could roll in this way and consider lengthening and widening through both the arms and the legs. So you have this sense you can use the whole of the hand on the wall. You could roll from side to side like you're walking on your hands. Yes, lovely. And leave that. Just lie there on your back. And just move your fingers and toes once or twice to get a sense of that. Get a sense of the length, width and depth of your body now. How much of you can flow with gravity. And then roll over onto your side and come onto your hands and knees again. Just get a sense of the difference. The way your hands connect onto the floor now. And the connection into the front and back. And crawl a little bit and just notice how everything can move. You could come up onto your hands and feet and sense how it is walking here. A sense of everything connecting into the front and back of the rib cage and the top and bottom of the pelvis. And then come up to stand. Sense how that feels. Sense of depth, sense of length and width. And then, shift your weight side to side and then begin to walk and notice how everything sits over your feet now. The capacity of everything to adjust and balance.